Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I am Sarah Kelly. I am the Assistant Director here at the Alumni Association for Programs and Outreach. We want to thank you for joining us tonight as we discuss the Florida State Demystifying Admissions webinar. We are thrilled to have you as we discuss this process this evening. For many of you, the journey for Florida State begins long before you ever step foot on campus. We start that with college application preparations, often begin as early as your freshman year in high school. As the leading university in the National Public Universities category, we consistently receive a high volume of first-year applications. This year, we are very pleased to announce that we had 75,000 for a class of 6,000 first-year students for the fall 2023 admissions. Tonight, we've partnered with the admissions office to provide you with an insider's perspective on the undergraduate admissions process to our university. Before we proceed, there are a few housekeeping points to keep in mind. Majority of you are already muted, but if not, please make sure to mute your webinar. If you have any questions, please enter them in the chat box in the Q&A, and we will be able to address those furthermore at the end of the webinar. Furthermore, this webinar will be available on our Alumni Association website by the end of next week for all of those who would like to have a recording of it, or for those that may have missed and would like to have a little bit more information on the back end. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenter for this evening. Hege Ferguson is the Director of Admissions at the Florida State University. Hege, originally from Norway, completed both of her degrees here at Florida State, earning a bachelor's in international affairs in 1997 and a master's in social science in 2003. Over the course of 30 years, she has risen through the ranks from a student employee to becoming a dedicated advocate for the Florida State admissions. We are grateful for her willingness to share her expertise with us tonight. Hege, thank you for being here, and we eagerly await your insights. Welcome.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for having me. And I'm excited to be able to kind of share some of those things that I think is really important that we know about the application process. There's much written in the media, which I think contributes to a lot of the anxiety that students and their family members are experiencing. And I think in some ways that sort of kind of is taken away from the process. So hopefully by spending some time together, I can shed some light on some of the things that we do, and being able to have a transparent process, I think is really very important. I kind of fell into the role of working in admissions a long time ago now, and having had the opportunity to serve as a director of admissions here at Florida State has really just been the most incredible experience, and I really do love my job. I do have some people that say, wow, that's got to be really stressful, and there's no denying that at times it can be stressful. However, I have to tell you, every year as I meet with students and their family members and allowing me to be a part of their process as they go through this journey of finding their next home is just incredible. And it's very exciting. And I have had one child go through the process already. I have another one who's a junior in high school now. So I can definitely relate to being sort of on both sides of the desk, if you will. But hopefully at the end of this, you too will sort of feel like you're in charge of this process and trying to make it a fun and engaging and feeling like you're really kind of in control of it. So got lots of stuff to share with you today. So let's get started. And so Sarah, if you want to move to the next slide.
Absolutely.
All right, so lots of really good information on this slide that really talks about and speaks to, Florida State as an institution and the many, many accomplishments that we have received. What is not listed here, and I think is really something that's worthwhile noting, is that since 2016, we have had 158% increase in our applications. And naturally, by hearing that, the next question is, why is that? What has changed and what has happened? And for those of us that are following football, we do know that during those times our football team was struggling some, so it wasn't due to that. But there were a couple of things that we feel attributes to the large increase in application. The first thing is that we joined the Common App. And so FSU have 2 applications available for students to utilize when they're applying for admissions. The Common App is an application platform that has more than 1,000 university and colleges as members, and it has an international span as well. So not only is it for students here in the US, but it's actually also global. And so joining the Common App meant that we were able to really reach a number of people in other states, other countries, that we perhaps would not have otherwise been able to make those connections with. So Common App is a big part of it. We do have those 2 applications that I talked about, which is the Common App and the institutional application. It's important to note that we do not have an application preference. So if you choose to use the institutional application, that's perfectly fine. There is not going to be one that we're going to prefer over the other. So just pick the application that is most conducive for you. We certainly know that FSU has been able to be in the top 20 of public universities in the last 4 years. And so certainly having that ranking and being recognized as a distinguished research university has certainly been something that people have taken notice of. So our ranking has definitely helped us to get the recognition as of a university. The third, and I think also a really important part, is that we've spent a lot of time on thinking about all the different things that students and our family members have to do as part of our application process. And we really were focusing on removing as many barriers in the college application process as possible. And so that includes making application fee waivers available for those students that qualify within the application, as opposed to having to go to their guidance counselor and asking for one and faxing it or emailing it and all those type of things. We just make it easy. It's part of the application that they can ask for one. We also ask students to self-report their academic courses. And I know that there's going to be some parents in here, they're thinking, wow, that's a big leap, knowing that we are then counting on the students to self-report their grades, the level of rigor for high school. But it's really important, and we found that students are, for the most part, very honest with us. And so what we ask them to do is we ask them to take their official high school transcript, and we ask them to complete this form through a website that we provide, and use that information and submit that to us so that we can utilize in our application review process. And why does that matter? It matters in many different ways. As you can imagine, high school transcript will look very different. It will vary from high school to high school within a county, never mind different states. And so being able to have a uniform form that all looks the same, is collecting the same data, is really very important. It also allows us to get the information within 24 hours. So as to putting it in the mail and we're waiting for that to arrive and then to be processed, which can take several weeks, we now have access to that information right away. And it's also in the hands of the students. So they're not depending on having to go to their guidance counselor and only perhaps be limited to see them at specific times in order for to get the high school transcript. So it's making it convenient for the student and is allowing us to to pull the information in a much quicker fashion. And students are doing a really great job of providing us with the right information. It is important to note, though, that while we are asking for the self-reported information, it is part of our conditions of admissions that the students will have to provide to us the official and final high school transcript. And we go through the process of verifying all the information that was submitted by the student to make sure that they were truthful in all the information that they submitted to us. And overwhelmingly, they are. And in the few cases that they may not have been, that's going to be a case where they're not meeting the conditions of admissions, and we would need to rescind their offer of admissions. And so students, all in all, are doing a great job of providing us with that information. The other thing that we ask them to do is to self-report their test scores. And so students have the opportunity to take their score report and share with us all the tests that they have taken. And so the state of Florida requires tests, SAT, now the CLT, which is a new third option that was approved last week, as a matter of fact, as a testing option for Florida, and of course the SAT. But using those score reports, students have the opportunity to be able to self-report their test scores. So again, we have the information right away. We're not depending on it having to be submitted to us, waiting for it to come in, delays, etc. And so all of that allows the students to provide us their information right away. And of course, we ask them to upload their essay, upload their list of activities and their resume and their student portal as well. So all in all, by doing this, students can submit an application with us and have it be complete within 24 hours. And so that really allows the student to reduce having to be dependent on all these other entities and really get the information to us in a really quick way, and therefore helping facilitate the process of applying to the university. All in all, the control of the application is being placed with the student, and that was a goal of ours. Next slide. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have been able to attract a lot of students' interest, really just globally. And, with almost 75,000 applications this year for our first year class of 6,000 students. And those are students that starts with us, some in the summer, some in the fall. One thing is to, receive a lot of applications, but you also want to make sure that you receive applications for very well qualified students. And as we work on building our class, of creating our community, we want to make sure that we bring people from a variety of different places. And so we're very excited to be able to admit students from all of our 67 counties in Florida. And that may not seem like a big deal to some, but there are some counties in Florida, they're very rural, that may not have but all one high school. And so for us, being able to reach not only all of these students, but also be able to admit students from these areas is something that's very important to us. We also were able to admit students from all of the 50 states in the US, and then of course, from 57 foreign countries. And as you can see from here, we have a far reach, not only in the state of Florida, but also throughout our different states. And the top out-of-state states have really kind of remained the same. We have seen Texas make some moves up there, and Illinois as well. And some of that may have to do with the tuition cost remaining so low for attending a public university in the state of Florida compared to some of these out-of-state places as well. Next slide. All right, so as I mentioned, we have great interest, lots of students applying, but what is really important is that are these students really qualified students? And overwhelmingly, yes, they are. And you can see here, just based on the grades and the test scores, these are just very, very talented students. And that's an exciting part with that. And it's not unusual for me to hear from graduates from FSU saying, I don't know that I would have been admitted to Florida State these days with these type of numbers as we're seeing. And that may be true, but I'm sure glad that you were admitted to FSU, because that's kind of helped shape who we are as a university. But what makes FSU different from some of the other universities is that while we're not able to admit everyone that wants to start at FSU as a first-year student, we will go out of our way to provide different pathways for students. So if you want to graduate from Florida State, we can make that happen by a variety of different options. And so it is one of those things that makes us a little different from some of our other competitors, is that we will talk with students about different pathways. We will, in our application review process, provide students with different pathways to come to the university, recognizing that, perhaps it's not what they had anticipated as their starting time at the university, but also recognizing that, hey, it's another opportunity to join us at FSU. And so some of those pathways that we have created is called Seminole Pathways, and that's actually a group of different options. Seminole Pathways actually have 4 different pathways built in that those students can choose from. The first option is to attend the FSU Panama City campus. And so that's a great opportunity for students, particularly if you're looking for a smaller environment, but still with the FSU brand. The FSU Panama City would be a wonderful opportunity for that. We also have partnerships with our international programs. So we have 4 full-time study centers in London, in Valencia, in Spain, in Florence, Italy, and in the Republic of Panama. And so students have an option to attend any one of these study centers. They can do it for 1 semester, or they can do it for a full year. And this year we had about 300 of students that were choosing to take us up on that option. And then the last option is a spring transfer. And that's where we ask a student to attend Tallahassee Community College, which is right down the street from us. They take 5 classes, and those are courses that we would tell them what to take so that they would be right on track with us as they transfer to FSU starting in January. And then the last option is when we are telling students earn an AA degree from any of the public state colleges in the state of Florida, and then transfer to FSU as a junior and spend your last 2 years with FSU before you graduate with the university. Next slide. So there's always a lot of talk around what it is that exactly that we are looking for as we are reviewing applications. And it's not unusual for us to hear how much emphasis it is on the extracurriculars and what those extracurricular activities should be. I've heard time and time again, if you are the president of the student government, that is sort of like a shoe-in. And, if you do the girls or boys club, that's something that would be of importance. The truth is, we're looking for a variety of things because that's how you build a community. And we want students with different interests. And more importantly, we hope that students will do the things that they are interested in, including community service or volunteer work. And so there are other things that we will want to emphasize in a review process. Next slide. So these are some of the factors, probably not all of them, that we actually look at in our review process. And I would say, as you look at this academic core, if you will, that really stands out, that's what a lot of the focus is going to be. But the academic part of it is much more nuanced than just a GPA. In fact, I would argue that when somebody tells me just what your GPA is, it really doesn't tell much of the story of the student. Because when you say in GPA, I don't know, is that a core GPA based on just the core classes, not the elective courses? Is it from 3 years? Is it for 1 year? Is it your quarter grades? All of those type of things would, make a difference. And so when we talk about the academic part of our review process, we really are looking at the student's performance in the classroom at their high school. I think that's really important to keep in mind, because sometimes there are some confusion about how we compare a student's performance from their high school to the high school down the street. And the truth is, we don't do that. We look at how the student is performing at their high school, in their environment, with the information that we have on the high school and the opportunities that the student have been able to take while they're attending the school. So we are going to look to see how the student's performing in terms of grades. We want to see how the student has challenged themselves while they are in high school. So what is available at your high school in terms of honors classes? Do they have AP courses? Do they have dual enrollment courses? Is there an ACE program? Is there an IB program? What is available? And as a student, how have you chosen to challenge yourself by taking these courses in these areas? I do think it's important to also mention that we do not look at it as you must have X amount of courses, let's say AP, that you need to have a minimum of AP courses in order for you to be considered for admission. That is not true. Again, going back to what is offered at the high school, what are you as an individual choosing to do to challenge yourself? And I think from a parental standpoint, I think it's really important that we make sure that we have the students take the courses that they are going to be successful in, and perhaps consider also not overloading them by taking too many courses. We have seen and we have experienced students, they are really just been really burnt out because there is sort of this idea that you need to take as many as possible you can each year, resulting in students having problems with mental health, having problems being able to successfully complete the courses. So all in all, when you're deciding what you're taking to challenge yourself, there needs to be this balance, right? Of what is enough to challenge yourself, but not too much where it's impacting your performance in mental health. I think that's really very important. We look at grade trend. I think there's something to be said of starting as a freshman in high school. That transition from middle school to high school can be quite large. And we know that there may take some time for the students to kind of settle into their routine. And so I'm more forgiving, if you will, for how students are performing in their freshman year, as opposed to if they are in their junior year. We want to see a positive grade trend. And so that means in your freshman year, if you were doing a little bit of wobbling, That's okay if you are, though, improving in all areas. And so really at your junior year with your junior year courses is where we're going to want to see that you have really been able to take all on the challenges and that you're successfully being able to complete all your courses. Test score is a component of this. And in the state of Florida, there is a testing requirement for all the 12 public universities in Florida. And so, there's not one test that we think is better than the other. You should probably try, several of them, because it's hard to know which one that you will do the better on. And for admissions purposes, we're going to use the test score that you do the best on. So whether it's if you have an SAT and an ACT, we will look at the test score that is the highest for you. Same thing if you decide to take the CLT, which is the new test this year. Again, there's a concordance table that we're using. So we're always looking to make sure that we use the test score for the students that is the highest. In terms of how many times that you should be testing, that's a question that we get time and time again, and I don't know that there's a magical number, except what I will tell you that there is data that shows that taking it more than 3 times does not show statistically much improvement. And so, I'm not a big believer on, taking a test, 8 times. I think it can be a little bit too much, but I do think it is worthwhile trying different tests because they are different. All 3 of them are different. And so you may find that you have one that you do better in than the other. Some of the other things there are also part of our consideration. You see the non-academics, and that's really where we're talking about your extracurricular activities that I mentioned before. And again, trying to just learn more about you and how you spend your time outside the classroom. That's something that we feel is really important because it kind of speaks to who you are as a person and as we think about you being part of our community. And so we really are very interested in learning more about you. We want to see, have you done, any type of leadership roles? Do you have any work experience? Well, I think we all know as adults that students will learn a lot from having different jobs, and those job skills are definitely something that translate very well as they make the transition into college. So we like to see that. Contextual is really when we're talking more, as I mentioned earlier, really focusing on the high school that you attended, what is being offered to you, and how are you performed in there. So sometimes we'll look at if the class rank is there and available, we'll look at that. If it's not, that's okay too. It's not, you're not penalized for not having a class rank, but really trying to just better understand how you're performing in the high school that you are attending. And so all of these factors combined are making up a pretty good picture of understanding who you are and how we feel if you would be a good fit with us here at Florida State. Next slide. And all of these things that I talked about is really part of, and you may have heard this kind of thrown around quite a bit, the holistic review process. And the holistic review process really, are you bringing all of these factors into consideration? And so there is not one single thing, I promise you, that will guarantee you admission into the university. And I think that that's definitely something that is important to emphasize with students. I hear that, you know, it's a test score, perfect test score, or perfect GPA, you're guaranteed admissions. And no, that's not it. There's many, many factors that we look at. It certainly is mission aligned. And so for us, what that means is that we feel that this is a very special place at Florida State, and we want that to continue to be a special place. And so we are really looking to bring individuals into our community that we feel are going to continue to build on what we have created here throughout the times. And so that's something that's really important to us. We want to bring in the type of student that is wanting to better themselves, but is also wanting to contribute to our broader university community. And so looking at all of these factors, taking all of these things into consideration is really what we are looking for as we start our review process. Next slide. Some of you might recognize these. These are the 3 torches as part of our university seal. And so the Viris Artis Morris translates into strength, skill, character. And this is what we use as our foundation for reviewing our applications. And so the Viris strength really is with that focus and really digging into the academic credentials that the student has provided to us, looking at the rigor, looking at the grade trend, seeing how the student is challenging themselves with the curriculum, looking at the depth and the breadth of the curriculum that the student has completed and will complete in their senior year. I did want to mention that while the student is applying for admission, we are looking at the 3 years of work that they have completed, but the senior year is really important as well. We do look at that to see that the student is continuing to challenge themselves in their senior year. So their senior schedule is of great importance to us and factor in to this whole area, if you will, of the academic strength of the student's application. The other one is the artist skill, and that's really where we're looking at the student more outside the classroom. So what are they spending their time doing outside of high school? So the extracurricular activities, the leadership roles that they have, the jobs that they may hold, the family responsibilities that they may have. All of those type of things are things that we want to know about because that helps put color, if you will, to the profile of who the student is. And then the last one, Morris, which translates into character, that's really where we are digging into the essay and the information that the student is sharing with us. It's really a great opportunity for us to learn more about the student. And I always kind of look at that as an opportunity for you to be able to, share something with us that, you would really want us to know about you. We don't do interviews. And so knowing that we don't do interviews, this is your opportunity then to share with us something that you feel that would be of importance for us to know. Something that if you have that opportunity to pick that one thing that you feel we should know about you, this is the place to be able to share that with us. So, kind of thinking about that as the student decide to do their essay and what they write about. There are definitely formative experiences that they often will share with us. Some, there are perhaps more traumatic than maybe they thought of. But again, we see this as an opportunity to really just learn about them as an individual, and again, bringing it all back to why they would be a great fit at Florida State. Next slide. And we've talked about this a little bit earlier as well, the whole test score issue and how that fits in. And so, again, really important, I think, to emphasize that while it is a requirement, it is one of the many factors that we are looking at. And also making sure that you are aware of the super scoring process. The super scoring process is for that process for when the student had taken a test score several times, and there are sub-scores for the test. And so, there are sections that deal with writing. There's another section on reading. There's a math section. And so what we will do in super scoring is we will take all the attempts that the student have provided to us of taking the test scores, and we will take the highest sub scores from all of those attempts and make that new total score. And so that really allows the student to have the highest possible score after multiple attempts. And there is no penalty for taking a test score multiple times. I would also like to emphasize that there is no penalty in us thinking negatively if a student took a test and perhaps did not do as well as they wanted to. I can assure you, we do not look at test scores and sort of pass that judgment, if you will, of, oh my gosh, this student has taken it 3 times, and look at that, second time that they took it, they just, totally bombed it. We don't do that. We don't look at it for that. We are really in the business of wanting to admit students. And so, the super scoring is really an opportunity for the students to be able to present us with the highest possible test score. And as I mentioned earlier, statistically speaking, we don't see much improvement after 3 attempts. And so, you probably will not hear me saying, oh yeah, go ahead and take it again. But I am a big proponent on having students take and try the different tests, just knowing that some students sometimes will do better on one over the other. And there's really no way to really predict that prior to the student taking the test score. Next slide. So these are some of the most common admission myths that we hear time and time again. College is hard to get into, almost impossible. You need to have all A's, and test score is the deciding factor. You need to have all AP and IB courses. We don't pay attention to elective courses. The more clubs and activities that you have on your resume, the better it is. All of those things, is what we hear time and time again. And I'm kind of here to tell you that, no, those are myths, and those are not really what we're looking for. Next slide. In fact, what we should be focusing on is that more than 80% of all 4-year institutions in the US, and we're almost 3,000 4-year colleges, universities in the US. And so 80% of them have acceptance rate of more than 50%. A lot of what we see in the media is really focusing on that really small 1 to 2% of the Ivy League schools that are admitting very few of their students. But in reality, that is not the case when you're looking at the broader scope of the number of institutions, spread throughout the US that are accepting students. More than 80% have acceptance rate of more than 50%. our admissions criteria will change from year to year. And it's not unusual for us to hear that, gosh, someone will say, but my child was admitted 2 years ago, having this set of criteria. And now I have this student that may even have a little higher that was not admitted. And that is because admissions criteria changes from year to year. And as we look at information for our students, we are each year get a goal for how many students that we would want to enroll at the university. And we also typically will get some goals in terms of the profile of what we want to see for the university as well. And then it really depends on the student, right? I mean, they're deciding how many institutions that they are applying to, and then ultimately deciding of all their acceptances, where are they planning to go? And so I will tell you that there is a lot of math that goes into this, and it's not always the easiest thing in the world to figure out where a 17 and 18-year-old will end up. And we know with the caliber students, the caliber applicants that we're attracting at Florida State, they have a lot of options. And so, getting admitted to Florida State, the chances are that they have a number of other schools as well that have admitted them. And so which one to choose. And that's where we try to, through different types of modeling, kind of figure out, who we think will be enrolling at the university. And so lots of things that influence that, lots of things that we have to pay attention to. But I think the biggest thing is, the admissions criteria will change from year to year. The other part of it is also there's lots of different ways to get to FSU. Starting as a first-year student is not the only way. And, there may be different reasons why students decide to perhaps earn an AA degree before they transfer to Florida State. But I can assure you, when they transfer to Florida State and spend those last 2 years with us, earning their diploma at FSU, integrating into our FSU community, really taking in that full FSU experience, I think if you ask them, they will say it has been a great experience graduating as a Knoll from FSU, and that they, having spent 2 years at maybe Tallahassee Community College before transitioning to FSU, was not a bad thing. And so, it's definitely an option for many. And as I mentioned before as well, Seminole Pathways program offer a great variety for students to reach FSU as well. And then there are some students that we know that may decide that they want to perhaps, transfer to FSU, that decided to maybe stay closer to home, or maybe perhaps not ready to make that transition. And so they transfer to FSU later. And so again, really just important to kind of keep in mind that starting as a first-year student at FSU is not the only way to become a Seminole and graduate from FSU. And we will go out of our way as an office to work with these students that if their goal is to graduate from FSU, to try to make that happen and come up with a plan for them. Next slide. All right, so here are some tips for preparing for the journey, if you will, of preparing for the admissions process. The first one is read your emails, and in some ways that may seem real obvious, but I can tell you that when your student is, kind of getting on the email list from a lot of these schools, you will get a lot of emails. And sometimes it can be a little hard to keep up with it. And so as a tip, you may want to consider having your child create a separate email that you're just using for the admissions application process. It's a little bit easier to navigate as opposed to if you have it be in general sort of family email, if you will. So just as a tip to just kind of stay a little more organized, but also making sure that you read the emails, because we do use that as our official mode of communication is via email. And we think that the information that we send you is important. And so making sure that reading the information that we're sending to you is just very, very important. Pay attention to deadlines and starting early. And that could be in the emails that we send you, right? Is giving you information about important deadlines and the importance of adhering to the deadline and not waiting until the last minute. We know that our students sometimes can procrastinate. That's not news to us. And every year we see, usually the day before our deadlines, literally thousands of students submitting their application, having waited until the last minute to submit all their information. Don't recommend it. You never know when things can happen. You know, technology is not always perfect. And so being sure to do things in a timely fashion. At FSU, we have an application portal for our applicants where they're able to see what has been received and what is missing. And so by being able to apply early, they're able to see how their application is becoming complete, and therefore also hopefully reduce some of the stress. Be thoughtful in the schools that you apply to. On average, students submit 5 applications to different colleges and universities. I think we all have heard the horror stories of students submitting 20 applications. And so, you know, again, I think having done the research as to, you know, the institutions that you are interested in applying to, that you think would be a good fit, I think really goes into this part of making sure that you have a good list for colleges and universities that you are interested in. I think chances are that if you're applying to 20 different schools, maybe that is too big of a list. But again, you know, do what you feel comfortable with, but hopefully the research that you've done would allow you to come up with a list that is reasonable and manageable, so that you are able to stay on top of all the information that will be shared with you from these different institutions. Maintaining your effort through your senior year. You heard me say it earlier. The senior year schedule, we look at that as part of our application review process. And we're also expecting you to make good grades, just as good as they were in those 3 previous years. And so you definitely don't want to fall in a situation where, you know, you're perhaps not performing as well as you've done prior to. We do have conditions of admissions. And so when an offer is extended of admission, it is contingent on the student having a successful senior year. And with successful, that means that you perform at or better at the same level as you were when you submitted your application. So want to make sure that we stay away from senioritis as it is. Focusing on fit, I think that is huge. I think it is really very important. Knowing sort of what the institution that you are applying to, what that is like. You know, there's lots of different types, you know, urban versus college town, small public versus large public, you know, out of state, in state. There's lots of things to consider. And I think perhaps instead of focusing on what everybody else is telling you that you should be submitting an application to, focusing on what you think would be a good fit for you. And certainly touring campuses, whether you're able to do that in person or you can do it virtually, is something I would strongly recommend, because that really will allow you to be able to get a little bit better sense of the campus and the community that you are applying to be a part of. Next slide. All right, my closing thoughts. I've thrown a lot of information into you. I think, really at the end of the day is that, admissions offices throughout this country work really hard in reviewing applications for students. And, we want to admit the right students, the students that want to be part of our community, the students that we feel are going to be great fit for our university. And so there's going to be a lot of thought going into that. And I think as a student and as a parent, we definitely want you to ask us all the questions that you may have. Because that's going to help you decide perhaps if a college is going to be on your list or not. But just remember, this is, as you are sharing all the information about yourself in the application process, the decision that is given by a college university does not define you as a person. And so, we know lots and lots of individuals that may not have been able to go to their first choice institution, but in attending another institution, they've gone on to be successful people. And so in the end, there's lots and lots of colleges and universities that would love to have you as a student. Next slide. Here is my contact information. You may have some questions that you think of later, and feel free to reach out to me. This is my email address and my phone number directly. Probably easiest to reach me via email, because I tend to be around and about. And so you probably will get a quicker answer for me by emailing me. But I welcome any questions that you may have. I think that's part of what we do as someone that is part of the FSU community. And so, with that, I thank you for your time and wish you all the best of luck in the college admissions process. And as always, go Noles. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hege, for your time and your presence tonight with us. You and your full team that is on this webinar with us. I know we have a few questions. If we have a time for probably about 2 or 3. And if they don't get answered, I know the team has been live answering a lot of them. But if they do not get answered, feel free to reach out to Hege personally through her email or my email as well, that you all have through the reminder email that we sent out this afternoon. So for one of the questions, Hege, they said, if you are rejected as a freshman but have an AA from your dual enrollment, can you apply as a transfer applicant for your junior year?
That is a great question, and very interesting, because there was just a new admissions regulation introduced this year through the Florida Board of Governors. And so students that are graduating with an AA degree and a high school diploma are really first year students. However, with that being said, if they're not admissible based on sort of that grades and test scores and all the other factors that I talked about, we will review their application and look to see if it's part of their dual enrollment courses that they have taken, if that aligns with what they want to major in at Florida State. And so there are students that will be admitted based condition on earning their AA degree and the high school diploma that perhaps were not admissible as a first-year student. And so they're going to be admitted under this other category. And we don't call it a transfer student, but it's a first-year student, a review based on their coursework that they completed as part of the AA degree. And those students have to meet the requirements, should meet the requirements for their major that they're wanting to go into at Florida State.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Another one that has come through, and it's for students seeking a more specialized degree that may require taking specific classes as a freshman or as a sophomore. Would the student be able to transfer with an AA and then take the needed classes? They are thinking specifically for like College of Music is kind of where they're leaning.
Okay. So again, it's really for our talent-based program. That really goes for all our talent-based programs. So we have certainly the College of Music, but we also have an outstanding dance department. We have a film program, highly ranked, studio art, etc. We're expecting them to see that they are taking classes that are sort of aligning with their talent as well. That being said, there's also the expectation that they are taking courses sort of in that liberal arts area, because we are in liberal arts school. And so that means that they are going to be taking English, math, sciences, history courses, etc. And so, being a music interested student, for instance, we would want you to certainly have, for instance, your 4 years of math as a minimum. But on average, our admitted students have 5+ years of math. And so we're going to want students to be competitive applicant to continue to take those type of courses. And usually within the talent-based area, they may not feel the need to or want to go into, let's say, calculus, and that's okay, but maybe want to consider statistics, for instance, as a good option for them to continue to take courses in sort of that non-talent-based area, if you will.
And I will do one more. I know your team is continuing to answer questions as they go. But one of them is, what kind of letters of recommendation are you looking for when they are sending in those letters?
Well, the great news is I'm not looking for any letters of recommendations. And so we do not require letters of recommendation, and we would not review letters of recommendation. And so, no need to submit them to us, at FSU.
Wonderful. Well, I know that there's still a few more, and we will get to those as we go with our team. But Hege and your team, once again, we thank you for your time tonight and your presence and going through this valuable information for us and walking all of the students and their parents through the admissions process here at Florida State. For all of our participants, once again, this will be recorded and uploaded onto our alumni website. And I will also send this in an email to you guys as well first of next week, so that you have that and can share with fellow students and family members that may also be interested in this who are not able to join tonight. So thank you again, and we look forward to working with you again. And then we have one final slide for our families. And this is ways to get involved here at Florida State. You have the QR codes you are more than welcome to scan, or if you would like to do so, once this is uploaded, to be able to receive the information at a later time. It is great ways to get involved here at Florida State and with the Alumni Association through our alumni networks, our clubs, all of our events and outreach here at the association. And then, of course, there are Student Alumni Association. So plenty of opportunities, and we would love to be able to speak with you more about it and hopefully see you at some of our wonderful events and outreach. I appreciate all of your time, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you so much, and go Noles.